Yo guys, welcome to the last lap.
Don't forget to drop a lovely, juicy 5-star rating if you're watching an Apple Podcast or Spotify.
Hope you enjoy, and let's get into it.
You know, I thought Miami was a good race, like especially when I watched it back after. There were so many overtakes, so many good battles. It wasn't just, sure, there were some DRS overtakes, don't get me wrong.
But there's going to be.
It was deemed, like, for me, I gave it a 6 out of 10, and people were like, why are you being so generous? I'm like, what, are you mad? Like, that's at least a 6. It was a really good race.
When we did the live show, there was people in the chat that were like, when we asked basically what the rating was right towards the end, and there was people saying like 2 and 3, and I was like, lads, come on.
But did you
it can't be worse than any of the other Grand Prix we've had this season.
If you don't have the battle at the front, and like even then, I mean, Checo put up a little bit of a fight to Max. He didn't just let him breeze on past.
Yeah,
but obviously the tyre advantage, we knew it was inevitable.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you have the same thing with Lewis and George as well. It's like your guys are on different strategies. Like the whole point right now is to take points out of the constructor.
Yeah.
And like, I think Max and Checo knew the score there. It's like, but I mean, you guys did the watch along. I watched the race with my community as well. I had a blast watching that race and talking about everything, what's happening, what's going on.
There was stuff going on all the time. That's the thing.
Yeah, there wasn't even a dead period of like, even, I wouldn't even say there was like a 10-lap period where there was nothing.
No, because there typically is, isn't there? It's like, you get the crescendo.
You get that middle of the race, you get obviously the start, whatever, and there's like maybe like a 20, 25 lap period.
I was never bored.
No,
I was never bored. And I really enjoyed it. And
maybe our expectations are just so low after the start of the season.
But do you think people wanted to dislike that Grand Prix? Because
I think part of it
gets
was
a really, really bad rap. It's please bring up the fake marina again. Nobody did this year. Fine.
Yeah, because it was actually still there. They did have water, but the fake marina was still there. I agree. I think part of it is because, I think Miami's a representation of a direction that F1's going in that a lot of people don't like, and I get it. I understand.
And I'm kind of on board with that as well.
Yeah. So, but I think, obviously, if you're going to look at the race in isolation, because also Red Bull, like, again, and I know it's like, it's not what's happening, so it's ridiculous to say, but if Red Bull weren't doing what they're doing, it would be a super hyper competitive season. Like the rest, the other 9.
If my grandmother had the wheels, it would have been a bike.
I love that.
I couldn't put it better myself.
I love that.
Gino.
But no, it's fact. You're actually like right, to be fair.
But then if you get rid of Red Bull, several of the races, you'd be like, oh, that Aston Martin's way too fast.
And that's the thing.
We can never win.
And that's sometimes you just have to accept that, like, part of sport and part of what makes those, like you say, like Pierre Gasly winning, Ocon winning in the Alpine, Magnussen on pole, like, is because these things don't happen very often. And I think Miami was a really good race, but also I think, our expectations are maybe a bit skewed. What do you make of, you say like Miami is a representation of the direction F1's going in and like more races. I know you're quite, no, I wouldn't say outspoken.
I am.
Do you think you're outspoken about so what's your opinion on more races, Blake, just to clarify to the audience?
I think the idea of having more races, there's all these like subjective things. Like
I remember you tweeting something. It's like you told someone to go outside or something.
Yeah, so it's like, do you think the F1 calendar should have more races? If you think so, you need to go outside, or you need to seek help.
Yeah.
Because, like, let's be honest, 23, 24 races is a lot. And this is me not even talking from a personnel point of view. Like the people that work with the team, it's not just race engineers, mechanics. It's FOM, Formula One, all the agencies that support this, the news, the media. It's like 23, 24 races, and you're trying to cram all this. There's the quality of stuff that we're talking about outside of it is relatively low. So often it's just like lots of like go, trying to get the first thing to talk about something, and it's like. Maybe that's Formula One right now, but at the same time, it's just too much. It's just too much. Like there's, when there's a race next weekend, I'm like, do I really want to watch free practice today?
Yeah.
I'm not going to enjoy it. I'll just turn it off because it's like in the sprint weekend in Baku, and I was kind of outspoken about this. I originally thought the sprint format was super cool. It needed to do some work, and the rules that they changed for Baku, you have a separate qualifying for the sprint so that you don't basically unshuffle the field during the sprint race and go into the Grand Prix. But the whole weekend was just like, all right, practice. All right, now there's qualifying. Let's analyze qualifying. Now, okay, we've got sprint qualifying. Let's analyze that. Let's analyze the sprint. Let's analyze the race. And it's like, that's not enjoyable for me. That's work. Like that's not. It was so much. It wasn't fun.
Yeah. Do you think there's too much, Niran? Because obviously you follow like football's your main stuff, and that's on all the time.
Yeah, I mean that is. I do hear it in a sense of like when I'm obviously scripting to make FTW and stuff. if it's a Champions League week, it's just too much. Like in terms of the work that I need, the amount of games that I will like. I'll be totally honest. I won't be able to watch every game, obviously. So
how many games like on a busy week? How many games are going on that you need to follow that you necessarily can't?
Like if it's like quarterfinals of the Champions League, so there's still like 8 big teams left. You've got like a whole week of Premier League stuff. Obviously, we had the World Cup this year as well, so games were like condensed more together. So you'd maybe even have 2 Premier League games a week. You're talking like 9 or 10 games that like genuinely need to be talked about, like to some capacity, because otherwise people will go, "Why didn't you analyze that? Why didn't you talk about that?" Whatever. So I do agree. Obviously, though, from a fan perspective, there's not that level of analysing that needs to go on. Formula One isn't even necessarily a sport where you go to the pub and go, "Oh yeah, let's talk about what happened in the Formula One the other day."
Yeah, ultimately, we have to design, like, the best Formula One calendar is the one that works for the fans, not for us as content creators.
Yeah, no, that's fair. But I guess you need to get better at picking and choosing, like you have to do. You pick and choose the matches that you go into in detail. What are the topics? What are the talking points? What do the audience want to hear about? But at the same time, it's just like when you have triple headers, it's that's 3 weekends in a row.
Yeah, exactly.
I was like, if that's the case, if I'm doing content around Formula One, I should have just stayed at the track and I could have had a couple world championships on Max's car by now.
That's the thing. If you're a fan who loves the F1 and you want to take it all in, it's asking, most of your Friday, most of your Saturday, and a significant chunk of your Sunday. Like, and if it's 3 weekends in a row, like, I think that's where other sports, even though football, there's more games, it's easier to kind of dip in and out.
Yeah, you can. At the end of the day, it's an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, where you just sit down and go, right, cool, that's the game I want to watch.
Yeah.
There might be 2 back-to-back games that you want to watch, fine. But for the most part, you can't even watch games on a Saturday legally.
Yeah, true.
So
because you're asking, 2 hours, and you can take in the full context. You don't have to watch, if you're watching like Arsenal play, you're not watching training from earlier in the week. You don't need that context. But it's like in F1, we're watching training.
Yeah.
You're watching.
It's weird.
And it's like if you just watch the race, like on the odd occasion, like when I would just watch the race and I've missed qualifying, I kind of feel out of the loop because you're like, well, okay, what did qualifying happen?
What are they doing there? Like,
yeah.
You go back to Miami. If you showed up on Sunday, you're like,
you need to at least watch qualifying, if not practice.
Yeah, because everything's linked, isn't it? It's all
gives
context. Yeah, that is true. Yeah, if I've missed qualifying, I feel like I'm turning up here and I'm like, oh god, guys, I'm not qualified to do this right now.
But is it too much? And I feel like Formula One fans we're spoiled and maybe whining a bit that it's too much because like other sports. But fine, I think the like further to the point that you say, you need to consume so much of it. You need to watch training. You need to watch the pre-games in order to understand the context.
Even if you want to talk about it with your mates, like
it's like.
You want to be educated on what you're saying. And again, you can consume a whole football match in a 2-hour window.
Yeah, and that's all the context you need.
Yeah.
So,
but like, if you want to, that's where it's kind of, it's hard. I think it's difficult for us. And what's like, let us know in the comments if you're watching on YouTube. Like, do you think? Because we do have such a unique perspective. Like the three of us, we're in such a unique position relative to the sports that we cover.
Because you need to have dialogues and drive conversations after you consume it. So you're always under that pressure. It's like more info. Like we talked before the show, people are like, I've already seen this video on, let's say, this topic. I want to know what you think. Niran, I want to know what you think about this. And you're like, oh man. So I guess we're just gonna have to be a lot more selective.
To be fair, what I will say is though, I know we said like it might take up a decent chunk of your Friday, decent chunk of your Saturday, and then whatever of your Sunday as well. If we're being totally honest, the average Formula One fan watches qualifying and the race.
Yeah, you're right.
So that's like what, 2 hours on a Saturday, 2 hours on a Sunday.
Yeah.
Or
and
3
that's
hours
why
maybe on
they
a Sunday
want the
if you
sprint
build up and stuff. And I think that's also something to add in there is like,
yeah.
For the most part, you are maybe dedicating like 5 hours to Formula One each weekend. Yeah. It's in the afternoon, so you might not even be doing like.
But that's why they're bringing the sprint in because they want those fans who only watch Saturday, Sunday
to watch other things
to also watch Friday
as well. Yeah, exactly.
And I guess that's why because the viewing figures have gone up on the sprint weekends.
And they also want people at the track to get more out of it because like I've talked about this a couple of times. I went to Austin. It was the first Grand Prix that I've attended last year as a fan. I'd been trackside for 6 years, done a year of running the car and testing. And simulator for 7 more years. I'd never been to a Formula One race as a fan.
Yeah.
I didn't enjoy it very much.
Do you think that's because of your experience, or do you think it just wasn't?
I think it has to.
Because I'd love to go to Austin. That's
right. Yeah, no. I enjoyed being in Austin. I enjoyed being at the track, But in terms of enjoying the race, it was difficult because there was no cell reception. I couldn't see timing. And like that's what I want to see. I was like, but like
your programs,
yeah,
man.
but at the same time,
Your program's to see every little detail.
You need
so.
like remember was it Google Glass?
oh yeah, it's like right.
You can see the little screen.
But at the same time, in qualifying, I had no idea what cars were on outlaps, who was setting a time. I didn't know what the pace
you don't,
was,
do you?
and it was just like those are things that are important for me.
Yeah.
To enjoy it, and the race was the same thing. It's like I can't like. There's the tower at the exit of the pit lane, which has the drivers' numbers, but other than that, I can't hear the commentary. I don't know what's happened at turn 19. I can barely see the television. I don't have phone reception, so I can't see timing data to see the order, and it was just like I had to get out of that and just be like, I'm gonna enjoy the sounds of vroom, 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 and having a couple cold beers with my friends. But it was a different experience.